Please state your name and limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
I had a communication with Sebastian Cohen here the other day, and I'd heard that we might be looking at up to a possible 3-hour delays this summer with the construction work that needs to be done between here and Eureka. So I don't know, what you know or what you're aware of from that standpoint, but it doesn't sound real good. And I don't know what you can do as a matter of that and just following up to see what the timelines are going to be. But I've got a couple of people that I've spoken to that have said real concerns if we're talking 3 hours possibly to commute back just one way. Not a good situation. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. Thank you.
So Kurt, is it your impression then it's multiple locations?
Yes, the comment was multiple locations, just with the condition that they've experienced most recently.
Thank you.
And for point of clarification, the 3 hours is a attention grabber, but it's not the fact that it's going to be 3 hours every day.
No,
it's going to be the exception when you need to move a crane in to do some heavy stuff. It'll be a one-time occurrence in one spot where that usually happens. So it's just, we need to tell the story truly, but yes, we are tracking it and making sure that they can try to coordinate those stops. So if you stop once, you can sail through the others. But
yeah, he's just saying worst case scenario is a matter of that. It's just a question of, really knowing what we're dealing with and what we could be dealing with going back and forth on that end.
Yeah, so, thank God we're not having to go 299.
Yeah. Yeah.
So David, I want to make sure that I understand. So it'll be 1 or 2 times for 3 hours for moving equipment in, but the 3-hour delay.
For example, a major 120-minute delay on last chance grade would be because they have to move in cranes to help put it in place, the stuff for the new walls.
Right, but that's not a daily.
No, it is not.
Not like 299,
no,
which had daily 2-hour delays.
Correct.
So, and then I would expect, as they always have before, Caltrans gives our community plenty of notice for when this is going to happen. We usually have at least a week's notice, not always, but usually where, something big is going to happen and we can expect the following day. Maybe?
Yeah, I think our public information officer, they're working on some materials right now to explain what that means. Usually we try to give a really conservative estimate, and that's mostly for people who are out of the area that may have the opportunity to take an alternate route. That is potentially an option. In the case of 299, we had pretty long delays, and that was an opportunity for people to take a different route to actually reduce the delay on 299 for people who don't necessarily have a choice based on the location that they're going to.
Right. I think that, in our community, another big concern is medical appointments, getting to your medical appointment on time. And if you know a day or 2 days in advance that you really need to schedule your trip for 2 hours longer, then that can be accommodated. But if you're going from here to Eureka for a medical appointment, there's nothing to do but leave early, certainly driving around, and there isn't an option.
Yes, also we can continue to do also is to ask that the crane movement and the major delays happen off hours.
Right.
It's a little tougher in storm situations, but yeah, absolutely.
And normally we don't have a lot of back and forth conversation during public comment, but Sebastian Cohen did not mention that during his presentation to the Board of Supervisors meeting, and we will be having our last chance grade meeting next week. Yes. So we can ask him more.
I think we need to, because I think there's some real problems, and just communication that I've had with him saying that yes, the road is a lot worse than we've discussed recently.
Well, we can talk about it next week.
And I drove it the other day on business, basically, and it's just very interesting to see how much movement there's been roadbed wise, and the retaining walls up on the easterly side and that.
So if there are more details, I'm sure we can get them at our meeting next Thursday,
Yeah.
which is,
Well, and to be exact, these delays he's talking about, last chance is one.
Oh, yeah.
There's 2 other spots up on the hill. There's 2 spots in Humboldt County. There's
yeah.
another on the
there's-
other side of
yeah.
Klamath.
So it's not last
right.
chance grade
Exactly.
specifically, so.
No, but we've got a combination of things, certainly going up Crescent City Hill that, with Last Chance and the other areas now that are acting up, we're going to experience some issues, definitely.
So it's not specifically last chance grade?
No, but if you've driven it, or if you haven't, you ought to take a drive, just go down and take a look at what's gone on down there at Last Chance. The wall down there is definitely separated tremendously now. It's not,
Okay, well,
not
we'll
looking
get,
good.
I'm sure we'll get more detailed information next Thursday at our meeting as well.
Exactly.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you.
No, we already voted that out. Oh, on the other road. Did you have something else,
Well,
Rick?
I do think that we need to encourage Caltrans to do this as soon as possible prior to the high summer traffic. I'm sure they already thought of that, but it seems like as soon in the spring that we can move on it, the better, I would think.
So Kevin, maybe in our next meeting, we can have some sort of a factual update or a fact sheet posted, something about this concern.
Yeah,
I mean-
we're aware that people are going to be interested in the delay, and so, yes, working on some sort of, I'm not sure what it's going to look like. I know there was, for 299, they had a pretty good map that showed you exactly where the delay was going to be so that you could make your decisions based on that.
Right, and for this kind of emergency work, it's not always known way far ahead, I mean, sometimes it is everybody meshing things at once.
Well,
Winter's
it's frustrating. People complain that we need to fix it, and then they complain when you fix it.
I know.
I mean, come on. Let's pretend it's not an election year, and whoever it is that you're supporting, just work together.
And I do appreciate Caltrans they do have really big signs down with the 299 turnoff when there is a big delay. And they also let through other sources of media like Las Coast Outpost and the radio station. So you're really good about putting out that information if there is a big delay. So appreciate the public information getting out there. Thank you. All right, so there's no one else in the audience, so we shall move on and close public comment and move on to item number 3, the election of chairperson and vice chairperson. And do we have a motion?
I'll move that we elect David Finnegan as the chairperson.
I'll second that motion. Could you please, if there's no other...
Well, historically, you usually elect somebody who's not here.
Yeah, that's true. Well, too bad you showed up, David. So there's no other motions to be made, so shall we poll the vote, please?
Commissioner Hawley?
Yes.
Commissioner Short?
Yes.
Public advisory, or wait,
You don't vote
if
on
you're
this.
not, okay. Commissioner Finnegan?
Yes.
Chairman Murray?
Yes, thank you. And now we'll vote for vice chair. Do we have a motion for vice chair, please?
Yes. I would move that because of his expertise in this area, Darren Short be the vice chair.
I second that.
Okay. Could you please poll the vote?
Commissioner Finnegan?
Yes.
Commissioner Short?
Yes.
Commissioner Hawley?
Yes.
Chairman Murray?
Yes, thank you. And so with that, I shall cede my chair to the new chair and move places. Congratulations to you both.
I feel like you're railroaded into this, right? Yeah, I heard that train whistle.
Just a few minutes ago, you were in the audience.
You're lucky there's not a quorum without us. All right, it was a tough campaign, but Darren, we survived, so.
I wish they were all that easy.
Yeah. Consent agenda. Can I get a motion on the consent agenda, please, which is only for the minutes of January 14th?
Move to approve.
And a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Public comment. Back to the board. Comments, corrections. Poll the vote, please.
Commissioner Short,
Yes.
Commissioner Murray,
Yes.
Commissioner Hawley,
Yes.
Public Advisory Member Tucker,
Abstain.
Okay, and now since we're in the Policy Advisory Committee, let's get a report on the California Low Carbon Transit Operations Program fiscal year funding allocation. Tamara.
The LC Top program is another one of those sort of tricky programs where the funds pass through the Transportation Commission to the transit authorities. We only have one transit authority who is eligible for this program, and the resolution that's attached is a requirement for us to pass for the transit authority to be able to submit a complete application.
Okay, so the recommendation is to adopt the resolution 2016-02, which allocates $27,151 to Redwood Coast Transit Authority. Can I get a motion for that, please?
I'll move that we approve resolution number 2016-02.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Public comment. Questions from board members. Poll the vote, please.
Commissioner Short,
Yes.
Commissioner Hawley,
Yes.
Commissioner Murray,
Yes.
Public Advisory Member Tucker,
Yes.
Chairman Finnegan.
Yes. Which takes us to item C, which is the grant management assistance. The staff recommendation is to authorize the executive director to execute the contract for on-call transit grant funding admin services, and also to adopt resolution 2016-03, amending the overall work program to include the grants management assistant and corresponding funding.
So I put these on the agenda together because we only need one without the other, or we don't need one unless we have both. So I have some recent experiences leading to concerns that there may be some gaps in services for transit grants. We may not need this at all. I mean, but given some recent experiences, I think that it's prudent for us to get some additional help for transit grants management should we need it, so we can help ensure our community doesn't lose any funding through the transit manager position transition that they're working on right now.
Good. Questions? Can I get a motion, please? Go ahead.
I did have one quick question. Absent this, is this come out of the budget of the transportation, our authority, or should it come
You know,
from the transit folks?
you know what, we are approaching the time when we apportion our TDA funds, and I'm going to take some time in that meeting to sort of walk you through that budgeting process so this becomes more clear. But the TDA funds are funds that come to the Transportation Commission, and it goes through a formula. The top line formula, portion of the formula is administrative costs for the Transportation Commission to meet its needs. And then it goes through other portions of the formula, 2% for ped bike purposes, 4% to the CTSA, which is now Community Assistance League. So that's about $10,000 to ped bike, and I mean, rough numbers, and about $28,000 to Community Assistance League. And the remaining of the funds goes to Redwood Coast Transit Authority. So we essentially take money off the top, and then it moves down through this formula to Redwood Coast Transit Authority. So it is all TDA funds. There is no more pie. So it just depends on where the funds are allocated. If they're allocated out of the top, it's still TDA funds. And if they're taken out of Redwood Coast Transit Authority budget, it's TDA funds. But we don't have any authority over Redwood Coast Transit Authority's budget. It's completely outside our jurisdiction. So when we use a little bit more administrative funds, it just reduces the allocation to Redwood Coast Transit Authority in the future. And that's what this does, is it moves it off the top before it goes through that formula, reduces the allocation to Redwood Coast Transit Authority at the end of the day. So there's there's no net difference.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
It just seemed like if they didn't have an active transit manager, those dollars are being saved by not using the permanent transit manager, and why do we come up with the additional dollars to have a contract person?
I absolutely understand that. And again, I want to be clear. I don't know that we're going to need this. So but I think that it's better for us, given the amount of money our community could potentially lose, to be careful.
Thank you.
Can I get a motion on this recommendation, please? Anybody?
I'll move to authorize the executive director to execute contract for all on-call transit grant fund administrative services after review by council, and adopt resolution 2016-03, amending the overall work program to include grant management assistance and the corresponding funding.
Is there a second? Chair will second. Public comment? Board member comment? Poll the vote, please.
Public member, advisory member Tucker,
Yes.
Commissioner Short,
Yes.
Commissioner Murray,
Yes.
Commissioner Hawley,
Yes.
Chairman Finnegan.
Yes, thank you for that. Discussion items. RTP.
So Catherine's passing down a brief list. I thought it would just help us to keep track of the projects that we're discussing. We're in the process of completing the draft for the Regional Transportation Plan update. And in that document, we have a top priority unfunded project chapter. And it's a chapter, it's a little bit like a short list. We have a lot of very high priority projects, but we really take a look at what's reasonable to accomplish even in the next 5 years. So, and given the region's highest priorities. So some of these projects we wouldn't accomplish in the next 5 years, but some of them we would, and we take a look at what's regionally significant. We consider public comments. The TAC met and came up with this list, and this is not an action item. So I want to be clear about that. This isn't an action item. It won't be an action item until the commission is approving the draft becoming a final. But I felt it prudent to share with you what the TAC came up with and hear any comments, should you have any, on this list. So looking over it, number 1 was last chance grade. Number 2, the Highway 101 gateway. 3, Front Street. 4, Recwat and PJ Murphy Road from 101 to the end. 5, Elk Valley Road from Holland Hill to Parkway Drive. 6, Pebble Beach between 6th and 9th Streets. 7, Washington Boulevard reconstruction from Inyo to Dale Rupert Road. The 2 projects that we had a conversation about but did not include on the list because they don't appear to be regionally significant is K Street reconstruction from Front to 3rd Street. It's a really bad and tricky spot in the city streets, but it does go in front of parks, but it's still not a regionally significant area, and so not downgrading the importance of those projects for the city, but taking a look at the regional significance. The TAC, including the city members, agreed that, yeah, it's important but not regionally significant. We had the same conversation about A Street from 7th to Pacific, an important city area but not regionally significant. Different from the Washington Boulevard, which takes folks to the airport. I mean, it's, the importance of that road, taking folks to, not only to the high school, but beyond into the airport, is the reason, is one of the significant differences of those 2 projects. So we had a lengthy conversation about, how to come up with this list. And then the other, so this is what we came up with. There are other projects that, I think are very important, but again, one of them is a parks project. National and state parks is working on funding and building a trail from parks to the downtown Haiichi. We have a downtown, the downtown Haiichi area, and that will be off US Highway 199 in through parks. It'll be a path. It'll be ADA compliant, and it'll come out into the community of Hayuchi on the opposite side of the road from the store. I think that when that happens, we will have to go back to that Hayuchi T application that we had, potentially take another look at that and say, okay, what's a safe pedestrian crossing here? But we're not there yet. They expect to have the funding in place in the next 2 years. They're really motivated to get that trail done, but we don't have a need yet at this time. When we had that project PID document, project initiation document, brought to the community in Hayuchi, there were many community members who were against it. So I think that we need to take some time. We need to, redefine the need once this trail is in. But, again, encouraging, I'm very encouraged. I would, I thought, should this ped bike path, because it removes people from the state highway system, it's an important alternative to the T project that we developed, not fully accommodating for the highway portion, of course, because it is a state parks project, but something that, I'm down the road looking at and saying, yeah, that Hayuchi T application that Caltrans developed is probably going to come back to us, need to be revised, because we will have even a greater need, and maybe the community members, maybe we can consider the comments of the community members and reconfigure how that project was initially designed. So it's,
Is there any talk about their continued dialogue regarding the roundabout, potential roundabout funding for Parkway Washington interchange? Or is that not considered regional?
We don't have, I haven't heard conversation about that intersection. But my understanding is that we don't have an accident rate at that location at this time.
We don't, yeah.
Without a concerning accident rate, I mean, we have received some community comments about that intersection, and people don't like it. I had some comments from past Highway Patrol member who said, if folks would understand the meaning of yield, it wouldn't be a concern.
Yeah.
So
it is. I was just wondering if there's special funding for roundabouts. I know we'd explored it one time.
No.
CDD's looking at it. There's a safety improvement project for the entirety of Parkways, and I just
no, there's
didn't want to belabor it. Just
there isn't an accident rate there. It's highly unlikely to fund an area for accidents that doesn't have an accident rate.
okay. Any other comments regarding anything on this or understanding the process?
Well, back to the Hayuchi project, there's no federal park area in that section at all?
I believe that national and state parks are working together to build and fund that trail, but that's on park land, at the park project. It probably won't involve the Transportation Commission outside of a letter of support. But it's an important linkage, and one part of what we were trying to accomplish with the Hayuchi T project. What it does do is it gets folks off U.S. Highway 199.
And I understand that. I was just wondering if anybody had thought about applying to the Secure Rural Schools, the RAC funding, if there was anybody willing to do any of that, because there is a second round of funding. We have a 2-year funding cycle now, and there's more funding, and we're setting up meetings for that now. I sit on that board.
Yeah, I think that Parks has a funding strategy that they're working
all right.
for.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in the plan itself, then, the 1 through 7, is that a prioritized list? In other words,
Yep, that's a prioritized list.
So 1's the first priority and
It's-
7th would be the least.
It's hard to come up with, but, from a staff perspective, it's really helpful for me to have clear direction from the commission about what's next. It's also very helpful when funding does become available that we have thought about these projects and put them into a list. Now, it doesn't mean that, Pebble Beach between 6th and 9th Streets would always follow Front Street, because we have many varieties of opportunities with transportation funding. There may be a project that's not on this list that is on the high priority list in the plan that we move forward and fund before any of these projects, because it's the best fit for the funding available. Given how competitive transportation funding is these days, you really need to take a hard look at your project and say, what is the best fit for the funding available? If you're not doing that, you're probably precluding yourself from all funding. So we come up with a short list, but it doesn't mean that we're not going to do anything but this list.
So it's a good segue into the next, which is transportation funding in California.
I wonder on that list if we shouldn't expand number 1 to include the 4 projects that start at just this side of Hamilton Road, where the road is falling off, where the redwood tree fell and finished off the degradation that was happening underneath the roadway there at the old sand pit.
Yeah.
And then further on the other side of Mill Creek, where the road's failing there also, we have a pretty major problem from Hamilton Road area all the way to Last Chance grade. So I wonder if
Well,
and then on the other side, the freeway, we got a culvert.
Right.
Yeah.
But the difference in those projects in their position in the regional transportation plan is those projects are emergency projects that are moving forward right now. So, the road is failing. Caltrans is obligated to keep the road open. So the ongoing projects on Last Chance grade, on all of Highway 101, regardless of where it is, and 199 too for that matter, anytime the road fails, Caltrans is going to come in with an emergency project. It's not typically something that we would prioritize in a regional transportation plan. And, and of note there, I should probably say US Highway 101 bypass or some better description, but again, this is my brief note to help us track the conversation, not a full description of what will be in the draft once we get there.
And one of the options is to come out on Hamilton Road for the Last Chance grade, but that's one of the most expensive options, and the group wasn't necessarily in favor of it. So just to let you know.
Okay.
Okay, so transportation funding in the state. The STIP is negative $750 million right now. I've never seen it a negative number. I mean, and the RTPA group, we're looking at strategies for how to work with the state to get it to be a zero STIP, and we have folks in the room who are excited about potentially having a zero STIP, which is astonishing for us. I mean, who could have thunk 4 years ago, 6 years ago, a zero STIP would be exciting? But what's happening across the state is that the 700, unless something happens, and nothing's going to happen soon enough for sure, the 750 million will need to be reconciled. So that's for future projects that have not received an allocation. The local transportation commission we don't have any projects in those categories. The only project that we have funded in the RTIP at this time is our planning, programming, and monitoring funds, and the state is ensuring us that those funds will be provided for first, and that helps maintain the projects that have already received their funding. So it's, and they have always prioritized PPM funding. So you may be hearing some about this. It doesn't impact projects that Del Norte has. The county's received its allocation long ago for Fred Hay Drive. We don't have any other projects other than PPM in the RTIP and STIP right now. So I want to be clear on that. There's an Assembly Bill 1591 that's coming forward from Assembly Member Jim Frazier, proposing transportation funding. The governor has funding in his budget. He's proposing funding in his budget for transportation. I haven't been tracking that real closely, but I think that things are so bad in transportation funding right now that I honestly believe that something will change. I mean, it's unfortunate that the pendulum has to swing so far, but indeed it does. And it's, as off the charts as we can imagine right now with the lack of funding available. And it's just all tied to the very odd and way that transportation is funded in California. So we have it tied to gas tax. You have a fuel efficient vehicle, you're buying less gas, it reduces the funding we have available. And so you have these opposing priorities in the state. fuel-efficient vehicles on one, but if you don't sell enough gas, you can't keep your roads open on the other. It's a silly mix of circumstances, in my opinion, that it may have been a good idea at the time, and it may have also been the only way they could have gotten the funding passed over 20-some years ago. But the funding isn't also indexed, so there's no index for inflation. There's nothing changing. It's just this very odd situation, and with gas prices so low, we find ourselves in this predicament. And this predicament, though, I want to be clear, I've read some things in the SecB about this. This isn't new. This has been broken for several years. The transportation funding problem, it's worse now, so people have a little bit of an eye-opening experience to it now, but this problem is not new. We have been going downhill on this, the purchasing dollars of our transportation funds in the state for a decade or more. I mean, you can look at the charts and it's just down, down, down. We may have taken a sharper turn down right now, but this problem isn't new, and I honestly believe that something will happen. It's gotten to the point where it's so bad that something will happen. So without talking about any specific solution, I don't know. I'm constantly surprised. I was surprised when the FAST Act was passed. Boom, there we have it. So that's where we are in the state.
Well, I'm doing my share by driving my old beater in 2002 Ford Explorer.
Good. Well, you're exactly right. There is actually going to be less. The county can expect less gas, less road funds. It is declining. There's an $8 billion hole even if they do index it. So we're working on a replacement for it, but it still is not going to fill the gap to fix the roads that get worse. And you're right, it'll get worse before it gets better.
Well, and I would clarify that the part of the tax on gas is indexed, and that's part of what caused this problem, because when they did the gas tax swap, they indexed it to the price of oil, and so now they have to go back and make adjustments. Before it was 18 cents, and they just lowered it to 12 cents.
Right.
And next it's going to be
Even lower.
It's going to be 10 cents.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, you're right. There is a portion of it that is.
It's in the wrong direction, and on top of that, the last allocation for the Secure Rural Schools money has been paid. The checks are out. There is no enabling legislation to continue that, and that's probably, if it doesn't, somewhere along the line will mean the department will be defunct. Not as bad as some other, like Trinity, that has to do snow plowing as well. And also schools, it's going to take about a $500,000 hit, or excuse me, $500,000. No, yeah, about $500,000 hit. So it's not news.
Yeah. So we've had some, moving forward, we've had some community conversations about declaring a state of emergency at last chance grade. I have answered this question to specific commissioners, to the County Board of Supervisors, to other folks in the community on multiple occasions. The question continues to come back to us. So I have asked, and Caltrans has agreed to put a frequently asked questions section up on the website. I didn't check this morning, but I believe it's going to be very soon, that answers the question about a state of emergency and what that frankly does not do. I mean, it doesn't, there's nothing to be gained by declaring a state of emergency that it doesn't meet the criteria for emergency set by the federal government. So unless you have $1 billion to build the project, declaring a state of emergency is interesting but not helpful to moving the project forward.
If you had $1 billion, you still couldn't build the project because it has to follow the process. And it's two separate things. And we had that congressional committee that is working, that will talk about the going around. The issue of an emergency has to do with only the existing roadway, and they will keep filling it in. And the unintended consequences is that if this community decides that that is a strong health and safety emergency, Caltrans has no alternative but to shut it down. And so it is for people that I know of that are blustering because it's an election year. The solution, it's out there and it's going to change. It's fix it as you go, identify the thing, and continue with the congressional process because it's going to take an act of Congress. There are no more earmarks. Unfortunately, Frank Riggs didn't choose to fund a special earmark to move it around when his good buddy Bubba was in the community here. So now we have a different funding process, and it's extremely frustrating to keep hearing this crap. Leave it at that.
I'll just say that I talked to Sebastian this morning, and yesterday he had a conversation with the Federal Highway Administration, so I think that they're still ironing out some of the language for exactly what to say on the website, so that it's clear. So I would say at least a week probably before they put that together, but they are working on it.
Good.
You'd think I'd be used to this after 19 years, right? But it's extremely frustrating to people that just want to attack without a solution and not give credence or credit to the people, Caltrans, LTCO, different individuals that have been working on this thing for more than 15 years. You know, there was a time when Susan Morrison and myself were the only ones that were asking for a bypass when in 2002, 2003, when they did the study and said, nope, $900,000 a year, we'll stockpile stuff down at the bottom and we'll fill it as we need. So it just, I guess I better develop some thicker skin in the next couple of months.
You not have thick skin? Sorry, David.
How about the North Gateway speed limits?
Wait, one thing though, could we put on those frequently asked questions that we need to wait for the funding that we'll get in July to start doing the environmental studies? That's the first step. Could we mention that on those frequently asked questions? Because people don't seem to understand that. So if they have it in writing, maybe they'll understand it.
Yeah, maybe a section that's about the future, the next steps.
The next step,
just
because
lines it up.
that's the first thing that we have to do is the environmental,
Yeah.
and we have to wait for the funding to do that, and that can't start until at least July 1st, right?
Yeah, we do have something on there, but yeah, we could always refresh it. And
Just
say
take a
okay,
look at it.
so that
Okay,
people-
Yeah.
good. Because
Yeah, no, there is a sort of a map for how this is done with the estimated timeline, but maybe a little bit more clarity for when we're approaching those steps, like we may be right now.
next
And this is probably a good time to mention that at the end of March, we're going to be having 3 public meetings on last chance grades. So the project study report, we're getting closer to finishing that. We're shooting July is when that will be complete, and so we're having public meetings at the end of March. As soon as I get the hard dates and times for that, I'll let Tamara know so she can start spreading that information.
Good.
So yeah, we'll be engaging the public again, and yeah, some of these discussions I'm sure will come up.
North Gateway speed limits, I'm assuming, is the Smith River calming?
No, the North Gateway into Crescent City. So the speed limits are, we discussed this a few months ago in a Transportation Commission meeting. I did a little bit of follow-up because I hadn't seen the changes made. And so I checked in, and those changes are coming shortly. And it's changing the transition from 65 to 45 to have an interim drop of 55. So when you're coming off that 4-lane section of 101 from the north to the south, entering Crescent City, there will be an interim slowdown time. So it's not 65 to 45, it's 65,
Okay.
55 to 45. And hopefully resulting in people slowing down before they come around the corner underneath the overpass into the community going, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Good idea.
So we've
Yeah.
been, we're
Slow them down about where the off-ramp is to Washington?
those decisions will be made by the department.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
good idea.
I'll just say that they'll have to do a speed survey, and then that will actually determine the specific location of the sign. So it depends on the speed of the vehicles, and there's, a whole analysis that goes
Good.
into choosing that.
Well, it seems like where the road merges, right, you leave Walmart, you come on into town, that's really problematic for a lot of people because you're flying down the freeway and suddenly there's this merging, and
Well,
then,
no,
then you're having
we're
to
doing
slow.
the speed limit down the freeway. You might.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I went 66 once.
Okay.
Yeah, I tried to merge at 45 when there's a 65 truck right there.
Right, yeah, so anyway, that's the reduction of speed limits at the North Gateway area.
Good. All right, Commissioner reports. Catherine, anything?
Congressman Huffman will be attending our last chance grade stakeholders meeting next week, briefly, so that will be good for him to see what we're doing there. That's all I have.
I'm sorry.
Just real quickly, we talked, I think, at the last meeting about guardrails, maybe on 199. I don't want to let that go. I don't know if they found the van or the occupants of the van, but I think about it every time I go by that section. And so I think that Caltrans is going to bring us an update on why no guardrails in certain sections where they seem obvious. But I know there's some science to it, and I just look forward to hearing more about it.
Good. Get that on a future agenda, definitely.
Nothing for me.
Caltrans? Yep.
Nope, nothing to add.
Me neither. So let's adjourn on the, and take action on the recommendation. We'll adjourn as the Policy Administrative and or Advisory Committee. And can I get a motion to reconvene, well, we'll reconvene as the Local Transportation Commission and take action on the recommendations of the Policy Advisory Committee. So can I get a motion on the actions that we took?
Move to approve.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any public comment? Commissioner comment? Hold the vote, please.
Commissioner Hawley?
Yes.
Commissioner Short?
Yes.
Commissioner Murray?
Yes.
Chairman Finnegan?
Yes.
Okay. So
It says we're going to adjourn to March 17th to a special meeting. Is there, what's going on there?
we had a conversation about this a month ago, and we rescheduled the meeting to the 24th rather than a regularly scheduled meeting time because we're coordinating the schedule of the Regional Transportation Plan update with Transportation Commission meetings. And in order to line up the schedules, we needed to have a meeting a bit later in the month. Now, we had originally planned on the 24th and not the 17th, but because of the problems in the STIP, the negative balance in the STIP, the North STIP hearing has been moved to the 24th. And since the California Transportation Commission doesn't coordinate its schedule with mine, I do need to be at that North STIP hearing. And so I'm proposing that we move the meeting back to the 17th. Now, I understand David is not available. You already let me know you're not available on the 17th, but I'd like to, you know, and I know we barely have a quorum here. Well, we barely have a quorum here, but I'm proposing the meeting on the 17th because it's a time when I don't have to be in Sacramento for the North STIP hearing, and we can make it work with a Regional Transportation Plan update schedule.
Okay, so let's go ahead and schedule it for the 17th. Check your calendars as quickly as you can, and we'll also be in, maybe shoot an email to Hemmingson and Howard. We will. And see if we can get a quorum on that. If not, then we'll have to reschedule, but for now, let's leave it at the 17th, 11 o'clock. Does that work? All right. If there is no other business, then we are adjourned.
Yeah.